So I didn't want to have to do it, but here I am. I'm here to talk about the crash between Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez from the Baku race in Azerbaijan because this was the big flashpoint from the race. It shouldn't have been. There were lots of positive talking points like Oscar Piastri's amazing win, the rookies who scored points. We should have been talking about more positive things. But there was this big crash. The drivers blamed each other. The stewards found that no single driver was predominantly at fault. And so here I am, days after the race happened, chirping off online about how that's wrong and why it's wrong. And all I'm getting is a torrent back saying, no, Rod, it's Carlos Sainz's fault or it was a racing incident. I just disagree. You're just not getting it. So I have to make a video. I don't want to, but here I am having to make one. Let's start off by reading what the stewards actually said. So the relevant part from the stewards report is here. Decision, no further action. Infringement, alleged breach of Appendix L, which is funny, and someone pointed out. Breach of Appendix? Carlos Sainz doesn't even have one of those, so joke's on you. Like virtually every other justification of how this all went down, everybody starts with this sort of preamble. And even though in the stewards report they say we're not factoring in what happened before or the consequences, we're just looking at the incident itself, they still go through what happened the corner before and all the rest of it. That I'll start down here at the salient point. Sainz reported that he was aware of Perez to his inside. Perez, being slightly behind, was in a better position to see the relative location of the cars, but as the two cars approached the wall on the right side at the exit of turn 2, they were about a metre apart. From this point and throughout the incident, neither driver steered erratically, and indeed both kept their steering very neutral. Love that. The stewards checked the driving line of the drivers from previous laps. This is previous. It should be previous. So even the stewards are fallible. They don't always get it right. Sainz was on or close to his normal racing line, which forms a slight angle away from the right-hand wall. Remember that. That will be extremely important. Perez moved approximately half a car width further away from the same wall, being more parallel to the right-hand wall. It was thus apparent that while ahead and having the right to drive his line, Sainz did move slightly towards a car that he had limited vision of. At the same time, there was nothing unusual about Perez's line, but he could have done more to avoid the car that he had a better view of. In conclusion, the stewards deemed this to be a racing incident with neither driver being predominantly at fault and take no further action. What the hell? There's so many things in there that just contradict each other and just don't even make sense when you add them up. Unfortunately, to get into the weeds of it, we're just going to have to watch the incident and I'll talk you through what I'm seeing and why I think this is wrong. So someone is getting desperate when they pull in people like Jolyon Palmer to walk through incidents and say that they agree with them. But let's just watch Jolyon Palmer's assessment of the event, and then I'll talk through a few things as we watch this.
As you see Perez launching an attack, Charles struggling a lot, and Checo.
One of the funny things that happens as they go through these series of corners is that Perez goes to the outside to challenge one of the cars, and then he gets wrong-footed, and then and Sainz gets past, and then the exact same thing happens to Perez when Sainz tries to go past Leclerc. He gets wrong-footed and he gets past.
Almost ahead into the first corner, but Leclerc's desperate in defence.
So there, Leclerc squeezes Perez to the outside and pushes through, and then Sainz is able to get through on the inside.
And Checo has to back out. Carlos Sainz comes through, but then goes to the outside at turn 2, and there's no grip out.
So the same thing happens here. Leclerc takes to the inside, Sainz has to go to the outside, and then Perez is able to stick to the inside line and do a little bit better.
There, so he cannot turn the car properly, and it gives him a load of understeer, and he's washing wide. Now, as we play this through in the exit, you can...
A couple of things to watch here, though, is you can see that Perez's front wheel here is aligned with Sainz's back wheels. And at no point will Perez's front wheels be aligned with Sainz's front wheels. So at no point is he ever actually alongside. He is always behind. The other thing to point out is where Leclerc is relative to the wall, because so much is being said about how relative the cars are to the wall. So you can see that Sainz is near the wall. This is this 1 meter that they're talking about. There's this 1 meter gap here, and then there's Perez. But look where Leclerc is. He's right up against the wall. And I'll point out why that's important in a sec. Sainz is the one moving away from the wall, drifting over this line, and then even drifting over this dotted line. And you can kind of see what's going to happen. We already know what happens, but you can kind of see why this is going to happen.
What happens here is Sainz is inching across to the inside of the road because his teammate is coming across to the inside of the road as well.
So this is where I would disagree with Palmer. He's not inching across because Leclerc went there. This is what we'll cover. He's inching across because that's the racing line.
And Perez holds his ground exactly where he is. If you look at the white line on the outside, you can see this movement coming from Carlos Sainz. So he's coming.
And there's the contact. So really what's going on here, and this is what the stewards noted, both drivers picked their line and then did not really vary from it. They kept their steering neutral, which means they didn't really swerve. So the two lines that those cars are on are going to intersect at some point. There's going to be a crash because no one moves. Sainz is in front. Sainz is on the racing line. Perez actually is not. Perez's line is going straight. Let's play on and see where the racing line is going. So we're on board with Perez here. What we're going to watch for while we're on this view, though, is where Leclerc goes.
Into turn 2. There's the understeer for Carlos.
So I pointed out before how close Leclerc was to the wall. You can also see here this angle with the sun shining in his eyes. And someone pointed out maybe Perez just couldn't see anything because of all the glare. Unfortunately, if there's going to be a crash and the stewards have to make a decision about who's at blame, like ultimately Perez is in charge of his car. That's not Sainz's fault. And again, the whole reason there was no decision of a predominant driver being to blame was that they found fault on both sides. My argument is there's actually no fault that you can put on Carlos Sainz, and here's why. Again, look at how wide Leclerc is there. Let's watch where he goes.
Sainz. Now,
there goes Leclerc. He's moving over. You can see this solid line. Leclerc's already broken across the solid line. And before these guys make contact, Leclerc will be almost in the middle of the friggin' road. Like you can see his line is actually headed over towards this wall over here. So again, to all the people who are saying to me, Sainz is the one that's drifting across the road. He's not. Sainz is on the racing line. It doesn't fucking matter where the wall is. It doesn't matter where these dotted lines and straight lines are on the road. That's for like traffic. That's not for the race. That's because this is a street circuit that's being converted for the race. Sergio Perez is the one taking a straight line. And as we've just demonstrated, the racing line moves from right to left quite a lot. Perez is the one leaving the racing line. Perez is the one saying, I'm just going to drive straight. And even though I'm the car behind, if I hit you, not my fault. It's like when you're a bloody kid and you walk around like windmill swinging your arms and you're like, if I hit you, it's not my fault. Absolutely absurd and negligent on the part of Sergio Perez.
In my opinion, whilst you could argue 50-50 and Sainz was moving across, I think Perez has to use all of this space.
No kidding. Both drivers, this is why it's important. You've got to factor out where the wall is and all these lines on the road. Both drivers had room on both sides. As long as Sainz is on the racing line, there's absolutely no case to be made that Perez is getting squeezed or anything like that. It's not like Sainz pushed him right over and then pushed him into the wall. Sainz is just on the racing line and the contact happens in the middle of the straight.
Sainz is quite well ahead at this point. He is entitled to move across whilst there's still space for Checo to track. And I think he'll be disappointed that Perez simply held his ground. You can see the steering dead straight, trying to keep that slipstream from Charles Leclerc ahead.
Now, one thing you could say is just because Leclerc went from right to left and just because Sainz went from right to left, that doesn't mean that that's where the racing line is. I would disagree with that, and I'll show you why. One way you would disprove that is to watch, I don't know, Charles Leclerc's pole lap from Saturday where there's no traffic, no cars fighting. This is the optimal racing line. Let's watch what he does coming out of turn 2. Here's turn 2, close to the wall, drifting back across. Again, these are, if you want to use these lines as a guide, here's this dotted line here, and he's going to cross over that. See it here? The dotted line, that's one lane across, is like past the middle of his car. So this is the optimal racing line. So in the stewards report, when they say Carlos Sainz was the driver drifting across into the path of the other one, that's just factually not correct. All that matters is the distance between the two cars. So it doesn't matter if Carlos Sainz moved away from the wall by approximately 1 car width, and Sergio Perez only moved away from the wall by half a car width. What matters is what the two cars did to each other. And at that point, Carlos Sainz is the car that's in front. And the stewards make the point that Carlos Sainz couldn't see the car behind. But, I mean, I don't know if you've looked at Carlos Sainz's head, but his eyes point forwards. That's why he couldn't see the car behind. You have to advantage the guy who's in front. To advantage the guy that's behind is absurd. He can't just pick his line and drive through and say, if I hit you, it's not my fault. That's ridiculous. One thing that the stewards pointed out in their report too is that Ferrari, if they want to, have the right to appeal this decision. Now, I think that they have an incredibly strong case that this decision is just wrong. The problem is that it has impacts on the Constructors' Championship because we don't know how the cars would have shaken out, but Ferrari were on for a lot of points and they're in the battle with McLaren, I guess to a lesser degree Red Bull, for the Constructors. And it might come down to decisions like this that cost them those points. The problem with appealing is that they'll need to provide fresh evidence, new evidence that was unseen and unconsidered by the stewards. And I just don't know what they're going to be able to present, because it seems like the stewards have considered everything like where the racing line is. So unfortunately, the stewards just got it wrong, but Ferrari have no avenue of appeal. There was a race, and I can't remember what it was, where Sergio Perez hit someone or got in some incident and he was completely to blame, but in the heat of the moment, he was acting like, oh, I can't believe these guys did that thing. And then later it sunk in, oh yeah, I was to blame. I kind of feel like the same thing has happened here. Obviously, Sergio Perez has had a shit of a year, and he needed this result extremely badly. After the crash, Sergio Perez gets out of the car, and this new angle has come to light, where he walks over and like tries to carry on a little bit with Carlos Sainz, which in my book is just not on. Here he goes. He's walking over to the car, and people thought, oh, is he checking on him? No, he bops him on the head, and he's like, what the hell, man? What the hell, man? You know, like, I mean, that's just not cool. You can't go and, like, I mean, drivers could have neck damage. Anything could be going on. You can't go over and, like, carry on like that. I just think that's poor form. That's just not cricket. Like I say, there were so many good stories from the race that we could be talking about. Instead, we're talking about this. Not even just what happened in terms of a crash, but the steward's decision and whether it's right or wrong and yada, yada, yada. I mean, we'll all move on. There'll be another race and everyone will move on. Everyone will get over it. Everything will eventually be fine. But in the moment right now, it's annoying. It's annoying to be a fan when stupid shit like this goes down. But if you're worried about the relationship between these two, there is this, which has come to light, which is a great little photo. Someone, despite the fact that they were going to have to go to the stewards and accuse each other of being at blame for this crash, someone decided, hey, can I just get a quick selfie though, me and my mate? So they squeeze in for a quick selfie. You can see that they're on the track. So this is before anything. This is in the heat of the moment. Absolutely incredible. So look, I wanted to save that for the next live stream or podcast or whatever we do. But I mean, you know, by then everyone will have moved on and I would have missed my opportunity to prove the stewards wrong. I'm really annoyed. What do you think? Do you think it was Perez's fault, Sainz's fault, or did the stewards get it right? I'm sick of hearing about it on Threads, so don't message me there. But leave a comment if you want.
If you want to hit me, do it to my face. At least our race is done. We're free. You can't